afternoon, guys. It's Workin, bringing you a quick update on Bitcoin. Hope you guys are having a wonderful afternoon. We're looking at Bitcoin at the US dollar. This is the 4-hour chart on Coinbase. And last time we spoke, guys, Bitcoin was sitting, let me get there so you guys can see those resistance and support levels. Bitcoin was sitting right here. It had just broken above this 4150 zone. Came up, tested this the bottom of this 4,000. Between 4,400 4315 zone here, the resistance area here. I told you guys that I wanted to see on the retest a nice decent bounce. What was support, what was resistance, I wanted to see it start acting as support. That's exactly what happened. Price came back down, bounced back off that resistance area, and came back up to create another high, a higher high, I should say, from this prior order structure here. Now we've since broken back down here, and now the question is, are we going to find support again? Our buyers going to come in and buy this dip up, and right now things are looking. We are seeing some good signs. I told you yesterday we were seeing some signs of strength, at least temporary strengthening of the market. The fact that every time we've had a dip here, that buyers have come, retail investors have come in to buy that dip up. Let's see if that ends up happening now. If we zoom in here, this dip that we're just seeing here, I was a little bit late getting my video out, which I apologize, guys, but this latest dip here was a little bit easy to see coming. We can see, and that's not always the case, but we can see if we go point to point, we had obviously price created a higher high. We just discussed that. If we go point to point here on the MACD, we created a lower high. Clearly, that's bearish divergence. So this little dip here is not completely surprising at all, but let's wait and see how it ends up reacting. What I'm going to be watching very closely is the top of this zone, $4,150, should start to act as support. We can see that it broke a little bit deeper into that zone here. I want to see it go a little bit higher and find support a little bit higher here. Down to then this zone, it found support at about $4,080. I want to see it come in here and tap right off the top of that zone, right at that 4150, get a nice decent bounce off that zone, and then come back up. And I want to see it break through, at least break through this 4315 with confirmation. In other words, I want to see a 4-hour candle both open and close, not just open, but open and close above 4315, well into this this resistance area with consolidation. Now, obviously, if we break above it, that's going to be that much better. But if we can at least break into this zone with consolidation, again, that's going to be a sign of continuing strengthening of the market. Now, let's go over here. The reason this area is so important, the reason I'm watching this zone so carefully, I pointed this out yesterday. If we go swing high, swing low, we can see that each one of these areas that we had drawn out, remember I had those resistance, support and resistance areas drawn out days ago before we even entered into this this pivot low here. But anyway, since then we go swing high, swing low. We can see price came up, found resistance perfectly right at the initially perfectly right at the bottom at the bottom of our resistance area, right there, that $4,000, and that coincides almost perfectly with that 236 fib level. And then it came up. What happened? Right at the bottom of this zone here, 4315, that coincides almost perfectly with that 382 fib level where we got a rejection, came back down. So we're seeing structure in the market each way. We can see up top. What do we have up here, guys? We can see that this line that I had drawn right here at 4570, somewhere thereabouts, guys. We can see that that lines up perfectly with the 50, with the 0.5 fib level. Perfectly lines up. What above that? What do we have? We had this order block right here creating structure. What does that line up perfectly with? Lines up perfectly with that 618 fib level, guys. So, and remember, that 618 fib level, as I told you yesterday, is going to be extremely important. If price can break above that, I believe algos are going to switch, and we're going to start to see a snowball. Are going to start to see price snowball uphill. In other words, we're going to start to see it gain momentum, at least temporarily, a temporary bull run in a bearish market. Now, could this thing turn back around and turn this whole market around? Could be, but right now we're not seeing any major sign of a permanent bottom as of yet. Doesn't mean we haven't seen a permanent bottom, and it looks like we could very well have seen the bottom at least for this year. Now, I'm not calling that yet, but that's a possibility. But as far as calling this a permanent bottom and us now being transitioning into a bull market, I don't think we're there yet. Doesn't mean we aren't. We just need to see more signs. So for now, guys, we're going to be watching this zone here between 4400, 43 315. If we can break above this zone there with consolidation, as I said, it's going to be a very bullish sign. But I want to, at the very least, make sure that we don't break back below 4,000. 4,000's got to hold. If $4,000 ends up breaking down, guys, unfortunately, if that does happen, I do think there's a very good chance that things could get ugly very, very quickly. So just something to keep an eye on. Looking at long positions. Long positions are remaining relatively unchanged. Of course, we had some people taking profit, other people getting back into longs here, so relatively unchanged, as I said. Excuse me, guys, had to pause the video there real quick. So yeah, longs are relatively unchanged. Looking at longs relative to shorts, shorts remain stacked. Shorts are still outpacing longs by roughly 20%-ish, a little more than that now, I think. But we can see shorts are also flirting with all-time highs here. And that spread between longs and shorts are what you're going to watch very closely. If longs start to close the gap on shorts, regardless of whether that comes with long stacking or shorts falling, if the distance between longs and shorts starts to close, that gap starts to close, then you're gonna want to be very, very careful, guys. At that point, very likely you're going to see price coming back down, and especially if longs start to outpace shorts, there's a very good chance the market makers are going to bring price right back down. Remember, it's a zero-sum game. For someone to make money, someone has to lose money. So if shorts are stacked the way they are now, market makers make money by trying to liquidate those short positions by driving price up. The opposite is also true. If longs are stacked, they make money by trying to liquidate those long positions by driving price down. So that's kind of your inside information that you kind of want to keep an eye on to give you kind of a hint as far as which direction price is going to go. Now, that's all relative in this market. Right now, we're sitting at a volume of about 6.8 billion. That is an uptick. You know, we have had a relatively relative increase in volume over the last week. No question about it, guys. And that has remained. So that is good. That we still have retail investors that are entering into this market and are still buying the dips, as we've talked about. But this is a relatively low number. In other words, this is still very ripe for manipulation. As I always tell you, we need to see volume above 10 billion, at least above 10 billion on a consistent basis, not just 1 or 2 days, but on a consistent basis. That's when you're going to know that very likely the bottom is in and the new money is entering this market, and we very likely are on a sustainable bull run. Until we do see that, guys, this is very likely just a temporary thing. Now, it doesn't mean that it has to happen. Of course, you know, this could be building to that bull run that we're all waiting for. We'll just have to wait and see. But right now, we're not seeing any indication of that quite yet. Again, doesn't mean that it isn't happening. It just means we haven't seen the indication of that yet. So you want to be very, very careful. All right, looking at our exponential moving averages, I told you guys yesterday I wanted to see this daily candle close above the 8-day EMA. This blue line here, it did yesterday. It did close above that 8-day EMA. That is a good sign of strength, but we need to see that hold. Now, not just a closing above here, but we need to see this daily candle close or hold above this 8-day EMA. In other words, we need to see today's candle closing above this 8-day EMA, guys. And right now, it seems to be acting as support. Let's see if that can hold. And of course, what all eyes are always watching this 21-day EMA on the daily chart, guys. Make sure this is kind of a very good momentum indicator. If price is below and has remained below the 21-day EMA, the bears are in full control. And if and when price does break above decisively that 21-day EMA, guys, that's a very good indication of a momentum shift in favor of the bulls. In favor of the bulls in this case. The opposite is also true. If price is above and it breaks below, that's a momentum shift in favor of the bears, obviously. But in this case, a break above the 21-day EMA obviously would be a very good sign of strength for the bulls and possibly a momentum shift. And this is something we're obviously going to be keeping an eye on very, very closely. Pardon me. All right, looking at our, this is on the 4-hour, back on the 4-hour, guys, we can see the RSI starting to create structure, sitting at about 56. So, you know, relatively speaking, that's fairly good. We're going to wait and see if that can hold. We can see that the daily RSI just peeked its head out of that oversold territory. Let's see if we can, if it continues that way and if it can remain that way. Watching the MACD, we can see the MACD histogram has been ticking up here. We can see the signal line, MACD line are on a trajectory to cross here. Let's see if we can cross over into bullish territory. Obviously, that would be another good sign of strength if that can happen. We're nowhere near there yet, so let's watch, wait, and see. We can see a nice bullish engulfing candle on yesterday's daily candle, guys. I'd like to see today's daily candle close at or above yesterday's close. Let's see if that can happen. At least, though, we need to remain above this zone here, at least above 4,000, but ideally, we remain above the top of this support area here above 4150. If we can remain above 4150, guys, that'll be a very bullish sign. Let's wait and see if we can, if that does play out that way. All right, guys, and finally zooming out all the way on the monthly chart, guys, just kind of give you an overview of what's going on. This kind of gives you some clarity. We can see when price did end up breaking down. Why is it finding support where it is? Well, we can see the market created a lot of structure at the end of 2017. Again, this is on the monthly chart. Created a lot of structure at the end of 2017 here, guys, right in this area right here. So it is no coincidence that that's exactly where price is finding support right now. We've actually just broken just below the bottom of these candles of this structure over here. So we have 2 more days, actually 1 more day in the month before this monthly candle does close. What I'd like to see, obviously we need to see the monthly candle closing in this zone here, the bottom of which sits at about 3,700, 3,600. That's a given. But ideally, if this thing is going to have any legs for the for bulls, if we have any hope of a bottom being in, if we have any hope of a bottom being in, we need to close inside this order structure. But if this latest rise has any legs at all, guys, I'd like to see this monthly candle closing at or above the bottom of this order structure here, at least the bottom of this order structure here, which sits at about 4,300, somewhere thereabouts, 4,270-ish, somewhere thereabouts, guys. So we need to see this monthly candle in the next 48 hours. I'm going to be keeping an eye on that very closely. If it can close above 42, at least on Coinbase, above 4,270, call it 4,300, guys, in this order block here, at or above there, in my opinion, that's going to be a rather bullish sign. Now, zooming all the way out, guys, just to make sure you're prepared for all scenarios, and I'm not spreading any FUD at all, just want to make sure you guys are prepared. We can see that if this zone does break down, the bottom of this zone does break down, guys, that there's a lot of structure sitting between 3,000 and 2,500. It was created back here, back in June, July, August of last year, of 2017. We can see that this was tested again and confirmed again back in September, where price came down, bounced perfectly right at almost exactly 3,000, bounced right back up. So this $3,000 Bitcoin is a real possibility, especially if this zone does end up breaking down. If we break below 3,600 decisively, that $3,000 Bitcoin is a real possibility and something you guys want to keep an eye on. Anywhere between 3,000 and 2,500. Now, I would bet that there's going to be a lot of buyers in here, a lot of support in here. I would be very surprised if price did drop below this zone here. I would, in fact, I would be, if we do drop below this zone, I would almost welcome it, because I think it would weed out a lot of altcoins, a lot of garbage altcoins, and bring in a lot of new buyers. A $3,000 Bitcoin would bring in a lot of new buyers, and I think we'd get that explosion that we were all hoping for. That being said, an area that you do want to watch, and I pointed this out I think last week, but I just want to point out, and again, not spreading any FUD, but an absolute bottom in this market. In other words, if 2,500 was to break down, guys, 2,400, 2,500 was to break down, and we were to free fall below this, there's not a lot of support between that 2,500, but there is a ton of support right here. We can see all the way back in the end of 2013, price came up. Again, this is on the monthly chart. Price came up, created structure, broke back down, came back up, created structure, broke back down. So the top of this zone sits at about 1,200-ish. A lot of structure right here, and then price broke down over a period of a couple of years, came back up, and what happened? Perfect tap right at the top of that zone again, right here all the way a few years later in January of 2017. And then, of course, broke back down, came back up, another tap again, broke a little higher, back down again, and then just exploded, as you guys can see. So there is a ton. This would be this is what I call an absolute bottom. In other words, this is where I don't expect price to come this low. I really don't. This is not probable, but it is possible. And I always want to make sure you guys are aware of what is possible. This would be a bottom, an absolute bottom, in my opinion. Between 11 and 1,200 would be an absolute bottom, in my opinion. I do believe that if this does break down, and I don't think it will, but if that does end up breaking down below that $2,400, $2,500 zone, guys, I do believe this is where it would find an absolute hard support, and we get that massive bounce that everyone's hoping for. And of course, I would, if it ever does get down here, guys, I would more than likely go in with about 95% of the fiat I have available to buy Bitcoin. I wouldn't even wait for the trend to reverse, guys. I would be going in very, very heavy right here. If it ever does get there. So I just want to give you, I just want you guys to be aware of that zone. Again, I don't think that's a probable area. I'm not saying that Bitcoin is going to come down there, but it is possible, and you guys need to be aware of what is possible. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things there. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please let me know in the comment section below. As always, would appreciate an upvote if you have enjoyed this content. Until next time, guys, please trade safe. Take care of yourselves. This is Workin, signing out.